Well, people around the world never forget what his grandfather stood for. Mandela has released his memoir called Going to the Mountain, based on lessons he learned from Madiba in the United States, where he was on a book tour. In Going to the Mountain, Ndaba tells how he came to live with Mandela shortly after he turned 11, having met each other only once, years before, when Mandela was imprisoned at Victor Verster Prison, and how the two of them slowly, cautiously, built a relationship that would affect both their lives in extraordinary ways. He joins us now in studio to tell us more about the book. Well, firstly, Ndaba, welcome, and also happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Many happy returns.
Thank you, sir.
Well, tell us more about the book.
Well, it was a tribute, of course. It's 100 years of Madiba, so that's one of the main reasons I wrote it. But of course, I wanted to make sure that young people especially know exactly what Nelson Mandela stood for. People must understand that there once walked a man who came from nothing and became one of the greatest, most loved leader, right? Who stood for justice. And I believe it's because he loved his people so much that he was willing to do anything to see them succeed in achieving their freedom.
Yes. And of course, he loved young people even more.
100%.
And this is, I believe, the target audience.
This is the main target audience because, I mean, me and you, people, generations older than us, they really know who Madiba is and what he stands for. But it's the younger people that need to understand what a leader is all about.
Absolutely.
A leader is not a person who's there to boast, to say, I'm the best, I'm number one. A leader is there to serve those that don't have a voice, to serve those that they cannot act on their behalf. So it is important that people understand that a leader is there to serve. That is the first and most important priority and job of a leader.
Absolutely. Now, tell us a little bit about what was it like being associated with Madiba?
Well, as you can imagine, whether it was at school, whether it was going out in the mall, you'd hear those whispers, hey, that's Mandela's grandson, that's Mandela's grandson. And of course, you were very lucky because if there was a Michael Jackson coming into town, or a Janet Jackson, or Mike Tyson, 99.9% they were going to come over and say hello to Madiba.
Of course.
So we were very lucky and privileged enough to meet all of those stars, presidents, queens, etc. But the one thing that really struck me about my grandfather is that even though we got met by all these kings and queens and celebrities, my grandfather treated those people the very same way he treated Mama Oli, who cooked for us, and Bro Mike, who was a cook. And Albert who cleaned the garden, because Nelson Mandela understands that regardless of your sex or your history or your age, we all have the potential to achieve greatness.
No, absolutely. Do you think enough is being done to preserve the legacy of Nelson Mandela?
I mean, I think enough is being done to celebrate him, but there is not enough people who live in the light or lead in the spirit of Nelson Mandela. They merely pay lip service, but do they actually move in the spirit of Nelson Mandela? I think we need more of those leaders.
Absolutely. Now, what do you think Madiba would say about the current state of this country?
I think he would be very saddened. The ANC right now is divided. I don't think that, when you look at the ANC Youth League, for example, it has become very weak. There's no real woman voice. And even the opposition is not really doing their job. All they do is criticize the ANC. But what is their actual plan? What is their aim to get us out of this recession? They don't have one.
Yes.
You understand? The main thing is that economic power is what our people seek. When you talk about land appropriation without compensation, this is the agenda that's at the forefront. And whether you're black or white, it doesn't matter. This is a policy that's going to be here. Nobody's trying to force it down our necks. We want all the different political parties, stakeholders, corporates, civil society, you name it, to come together to find the best equitable way to move forward. But it is going to move forward because land is the most important thing. Why? Because number one, it provides shelter. Number two, it provides food. So we cannot escape this issue. It has to be done because this is how we are going to break the poverty that existed for so long in our country, is through land redistribution.
Now, how would Madiba have handled this land appropriation issue?
Again, it's important that we engage with all the different stakeholders to make sure that, personally, I would have given him a 7-year plan. I have a 7 to 10-year plan
Yes.
because I think things need to be done in steps and stages. I think one of the challenges that we have is that we don't have enough people who can actually run the farms. You know, you want to redistribute the land to the farm workers, right, so that they can get a much bigger share, but we also need to take time to make sure that they have the right skills and the training in order for them to be able to take over the farm so it continues to be productive.
Yes.
So that's going to happen over maybe a year or 2 years. So everybody needs to be involved, otherwise this thing is not going to work. And we also need to give enough time to the farmer, the farm owners, so that he can, you know, over the 7 years or 10 years, look at what is the alternative for me getting a revenue stream.
Yes.
Am I going to continue going to another farm, or am I going to diversify to something else?
Another industry.
Another industry.
Yes.
So we need time on both sides. And that's why we need to meet in the middle, come to the table and discuss how we're going to move forward. But land distribution without compensation is here to stay.
Now let's go back to your book. I know you told us very briefly it's about your interaction with Madiba, etc. Tell us a little bit more about the story.
Sure. So, I mean, my grandfather came to pick me up when I was 11 years old. He sent my parents to university because my parents never had the opportunity to go to university, and he didn't want them to worry about me. So he then decided to take me in, and so they can focus on the university. And as you can imagine, you know, being a former commander-in-chief of the MK,
Yes.
it was very strict.
Of course.
And so whenever he'd pass my room, I'd get a little scolding to go make sure that my room was clean. You know, one time I actually lost my school jersey for the second time. And so I had to tell my dear because it was during winter and, you know,
You needed, yes,
I needed a new
you were
jersey.
freezing.
And he got so angry. He said, today you will sleep outside. And so off I went outside, and you know, as it got darker, he sent me only a blanket. So I said, oh my goodness, I'm actually going to sleep outside today.
Yes.
And then maybe 30 minutes after that, he called me in.
Yeah.
He came outside the veranda. He said, Ndaba, if you ever lose another jersey again, you will sleep outside. Now go inside, eat your supper, and go straight to bed.
Oh, and you actually lost the opportunity to actually sleep outside.
So that was him. He was a disciplinarian. He was he much loved the children. You know, Madiba, the one Achilles heel that he had. He could be in a room with George W. Bush discussing, you know, the
State of the global affairs.
You understand what I'm saying? In walks a 2-3-year-old. Let me tell you, all concentration is gone. He will focus purely on that child.
Yeah.
That is Madiba.
Well, that was the part of the magic that he, and part of the aura and the essence that he carried with him.
Yes.
Which, you know, sadly, the entire universe is missing.
100%.
Well, thank you very much for joining us and telling us about the book and taking
Thank
the
you.
time, and wish you everything of the best and your celebrations for your birthday
Thank
later
you very
today.
much. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you. Well, that was Ndaba Mandela, the author of Going to the Mountain, telling us about his life and the legendary Nelson Mandela. We'll take a